Jeff Carlson takes control of Apple Watch. This is MacVoices. MacVoices is supported by our Patreon subscribers. Get access to the MacVoices Slack, the MacVoices Discord, MacVoices After Dark, and have your name listed at the end of each episode of MacVoices. Sign up at patreon.com/MacVoices. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, a little bit later than he would have liked, we have a new Take Control book, or new edition of a Take Control book from Mr. Jeff Carlson. Jeff, it's good to see you.
Hi, I'm happy to be back again.
I'm happy to have you back. And I introduced that because in pre-show you told me why the Take Control of Apple Watch 5th edition is out a little bit later than you would have liked, but I think it's a pretty good reason.
Yeah. So, well, I suppose part of the reason is just sloth on my part, but the more specific reason is that every year Apple comes out with a new Apple Watch and a new version of WatchOS, and during their fall event, it talks about what's new, and during WWDC, we get hints of that, and we work with the betas, and there's stuff. There are signature features that come out, and for some reason, my brain every year is like, okay, well, that's not a whole lot. It shouldn't take me too long to update this book. And then I get into the actual updating of the book. And I know this is probably, too much behind the scenes. Nobody cares about the work that goes into doing a book like this. But the point is, I kept finding more things that needed to be changed. Not even necessarily, I think last year I had to redo almost all the screenshots because Apple subtly changed the interface. But in this case, it was just running into features that I thought might be, a paragraph or two here, or finding things that they didn't mention at all that have been changed that then, required testing and, writing it up and making sure that I've got the details right, and finding tips and tricks, like the whole process of making a book like this. So, like I said, I do this every year. I should just know that there's going to be a lot in there. And when I start digging in, it's like full of surprises. So on one hand, that's frustrating for me. On the other hand, that's great for you, because that means that there's a lot of new material in the book. There's, if you own a previous version, you're going to find out all about what's new in WatchOS 11 and things that have changed and things that stayed the same, and, just get more of a lay of the land than what Apple marketing will give, because they're trying to sell hardware. They're trying to show you like the top 5 features, but there are things in here that will impact your everyday use of the iWatch. Wow, I can't believe I just said the iWatch, the Apple Watch. Oh boy, it's been a busy few months. Yeah.
That's all right. That's cultural contamination, because I hear so many people refer to it as the iWatch, and after a while that's fine. Just whatever, as long as you're buying it from Apple, I'm fine.
I mean, honestly, with what I do, it's a hazard, because just the iPhone right now, everything is Air, iPad Air, AirTag. I just keep saying the wrong thing, and as long as we roughly know what I'm talking about, we'll muddle through it. How about that?
Yeah, I think that's fair. This right off the bat, we're down a little bit of a rat hole, but I think the relationship that Apple has developed with the tech press and with the authors of books like the Take Control series, I'm not ready to say they've just abandoned documentation, but there's basically, you get no physical documentation with their products to speak of.
Right.
You have to go online. There's a fairly decent amount of stuff on the Apple website, but nothing really like a take control book to help you either get up to speed with an Apple Watch or to figure out what's different from the last version of the Apple Watch. And then throw in the fact that usually about the time we get a new watch, we get new versions of the OS, and it feels like everything has changed out from under us.
Yeah, and especially the last couple of years, that's been the case because not so much this year, but last year they really threw some curveballs because they changed some of the essential gestures. You used to be able to bring up Control Center by swiping up from the bottom. Well, that's now the Smart Stack, and people who had built up that muscle memory, myself included, kept doing that, and it was a constant source of frustration. And so, Apple's documentation is just, here's how to do this. Here's how to access this thing. And that's fine. But what I like about our approach is, there are things in the book that say, all right, if you've had a Apple Watch for, several generations, you're probably doing this. And you may be asking yourself, where did this other thing go? Then it's more experientially based. If I can try to use big words here, it's more of trying to anticipate how you're going to actually use it and not how the product works, which are two very different things. And this is all, based on my own use and my research and Glenn Fleischman, especially around this time of year, he and I will just like text each other out of the blue. He'll send me a Find My request, and I'll just know that he needs me to help him take some screenshots for some things, or vice versa. So it's all, how are you going to actually use this thing that you're going to pay good money for, or you bought a watch a couple of years ago, but you're upgrading to the latest operating system? How can you make the most out of that, avoid some of the pitfalls, and just incorporate it into your daily life? And I think that's sort of hard for some people to do because they want it the way they want it. And when things change, you don't really know why they changed, or maybe you just reject the change. And it's my job to try to explain, all right, this is actually a good thing. This is why they made this change. And this thing that maybe you hated, you should give another look because it's actually kind of good now, right? So, I mean, all right, if I can just continue on there, like the biggest change for me last year was the Smart Stack. Not only that it was brought, but it was moved around. So the way you used to get to it, like it sort of served as a recent apps list that's now moved somewhere else. And the idea was, this is a thing that has your widgets, the widgets that you're going to use. And because everything in iOS and macOS, like widgets were the huge thing last year. And it was basically just sort of annoying. You'd swipe up from the bottom and you get like a little time, but like so you can see the current time and then like little stacks of things. And I don't know, like there was something about it that just was annoying. This year, it still works about the same. If you swipe up from the bottom, or you just turn the digital crown clockwise, so you're turning it up, the Smart Stack appears. And they've tweaked the algorithms or done some work under the hood, because now it does a much better job of actually showing the thing that I was expecting to see. And you can add widgets there. It's not intuitive how to do that. You can put things that you normally want to use all the time. Those can go right there. It's also the place for live activities. So let's say you order some food delivery. If that app can do live activities, it will just show up on your watch. Like when you look at your watch, that's the thing that you'll see, so you can track its progress. that some people don't want that, and so there's a preference buried deep inside where you can turn that off. So again, like here's an example of a thing that was really annoying that I kind of really like now, but uh, it's it's not intuitive at all about how to deal with it, and yet I'm using it more now because I've been able to dig into it.
So did you change, or did it change, or did it change a little and you changed a little too?
It changed because I'm sure I'm incapable of change at this point. No. I think it did change, and I mean I think the biggest part of it is it's doing a better job, and maybe this is uh, under the hood AI type of stuff, not necessarily Apple Intelligence, but like it's doing a better job of anticipating what's going to show up there. And that can be the current weather. Like if it's raining, it's going to pop that up, or it could be my next appointment. And then I also have some widgets that I put in there on my own. Like for example, there's a new music recognition app. So it used to be Shazam. That's the underlying technology. Apple bought a company called Shazam, and you can Shazam something by have it listen to whatever music you're listening to, and it'll identify it, right? So that can be a widget. So if you find yourself doing that, I actually did that in the car this morning. I wanted to know what this song was that was playing. You can just pull that up and tap it, and it'll listen. And I didn't have to like go to the app list. I didn't have to, do something more complicated because I knew that I had that widget in my smart stack. So literally, as I'm driving, I can just, I mean, paying attention to the road, kids, but just turn the digital crown and see that. Like it's like took about like 3 turns, and there's a thing that says Shazam recognize music. Tap that, and it does its thing, which is pretty cool. I also have like I have a shortcut that I made that starts my espresso machine. It's tied into a smart switch, and when I want to make an espresso in the afternoon, it needs to heat up a little bit. So I tap this, it runs a shortcut that turns on the switch for the espresso machine, sets a 15-minute timer, and in like the most British butler voice I could find, it says, espresso will be ready in 15 minutes. My kid was like, why does it say that? I was like, because it makes me laugh every time. But, so just like little conveniences like that are things that that affect your everyday that I think a lot of people bypass or they don't notice because it can either be too complicated or hidden behind an interface item or something like that.
Or they just don't take the time. Sometimes a 10 or 15, not even a 10-minute tip, on a podcast or in an article or something, or on a page of a Take Control book, can I'm not ready to say change your life, but it can, as you said, materially affect it, because all of a sudden something that was nice to have, but you just didn't always bother to go get it, can be right there, right under, quite literally, your fingertip, if you take the time to learn how to use it. And that some of what you're talking about with the Smart Stack and some of the other things that we'll get into, I mean, it feels like an evolution of the Apple Watch and the Apple Watch software, where somebody's paying attention to how people are using things and finding out what they want, what they don't want. I mean, I feel like the Smart Stack is almost an analog to the dock in macOS.
Yes.
In a very rough fashion, but there's only so much space on that watch, so you can't really have a dock.
Right, exactly. Another example I would give is, especially with that evolution that you're talking about, would be, okay, this is something that has annoyed me for a long time. So when I work out, I generally like go on a walk. And so I will set an outdoor walk uh, workout, right? And there are times when I'm walking when I'm not walking very fast, or my wife and I are walking and we're just sort of ambling. And the watch, because maybe it just expects that I am more fit than I am, if I'm not really going very fast, it'll pop up a thing and say, "Hey, are you done with your workout?" And it's a convenience thing because I mean, heaven knows sometimes you forget to stop your workout, and so you're sitting at your desk for 20 minutes. You don't want to include that in your workout. So like it's a good feature. It's highly annoying when I'm actually in the middle of the walk, but I'm just walking. I'm not exercising. My heart rate's probably not very high. That's probably what it's cluing into. And so you have to like it pops up this thing, and you say dismiss, and um, well, this time they added a button that says like mute for today or mute for this workout. I'd have to look at it off the top of my head. Basically, saying, no, keep recording the workout and stop bugging me about it. It's a tiny little thing. I only ran into it because I, was on a workout and I happened to scroll up just to see what the options were. And there it was. Completely helps my stress level because I don't want to be nagged when I'm out, enjoying a walk. And it's just a nice convenience that you have to stumble upon to find. Another great new feature is if you get sick or you go on like a long international plane ride, you can pause your rings. So if you're one of those people who really wants to complete all your exercise rings every single day, and you've had this great streak going on, and then you catch a cold, you get the flu, you're bedridden for a day, that screws that up, and like it wasn't your fault. So you can pause your rings and say, look, I'm just not doing this today, and it's not going to break your streak. So little things like that are I don't know, like there's just a lot there. You would think in a small device like this, it would be more basic. Uh, and that's never really been the case. And I think that's also, part of the problem of the watch because it does do so much that a lot of people just probably don't even know about it.
And Jeff, here we go. So but I'm gonna back us up just a little bit because I agree with everything you've said. Are we talking about the new features of the Apple Watch? Are we talking about the software, or is it a combination? And that kind of goes to what does the book cover? Is this is the 5th edition? So should this be viewed as covering the hardware, the software, or both?
Both. So everything we've talked about so far has been just the software. So I think like WatchOS 11 will run on the Series 5 and later, I think, maybe Series 6 and later. And so these are all features that if you have any sort of recent watch, you're going to you're going to run into. It does cover some of the new hardware stuff. There's not a lot of new hardware stuff. I mean, the screen is better on the Series 10. The processor is better. Those sorts of improvements that allow a lot of these things to work a little bit better. So I went from a Series 8 to a Series 10. That's the one I have right now, this year's model, and it allowed me to actually use the double tap pinch gesture, which I end up using all the time because I'll set timers, and a timer will go off while I'm cooking, but my hands are, like I don't have my other hand to stop the timer, and so I can just double tap there, and it ends the timer there. So, there's some hardware things. There's a new Dive app, which I think is only applies to the Series 10 and the the Ultra and the Ultra 2 that was in the Ultra. So if you go swimming, it will tell you how far you are underneath the water. So, as much as possible, I've focused on, where the new hardware things are, but there aren't a whole lot. So most of this is software features that everybody's going to be able to use.
One thing that informed my decision to upgrade to the Series 10 was the larger face. And so because I was ready to buy an Ultra because I wanted the largest face I could get, and then found that the 10 had an even bigger face than the Ultra. So I know it looks nicer. Has it provided any other functional improvements that I haven't discovered yet? Or is it just the functional improvement is that it's bigger?
That's a very good question. So I believe now, see, this is where you're getting into the realm of, I should know this off the top of my head because I wrote a book about it, but I wrote a book about it so I wouldn't have to keep it all in my head. So I was actually running into the same choice because I had decided after last year, like the Ultras, it's nice. I liked it. I liked the look of it. I couldn't really justify it when it first came out. And so I thought, all right, well, this is going to be the year I move up to the next Ultra. And it turned out that this year, the only hardware change to the Ultra 2 is that it comes in black. And I know people who bought it just because it comes in black and it looks amazing. And like, that's, I will not give them crap about their choice because you're like, wait, you went from one that looks the same or one that's exactly the same to another that looks slightly different but is exactly the same. But we're talking about watches, so watches are also fashion. So but the Series 10, I believe that they're I think the Series 10 will do more in terms of it'll check to see. Let me start over. It will check your sleeping patterns, and if it detects signs of sleep apnea, it will notify you so you can go and get checked out by a medical professional. And I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe that that's because the processor in the Series 10 is newer and faster and more advanced, whereas the Ultra 2 is still last year's processor that may not be able to do that. Apologies if I have that wrong, but there are a couple of things. I could look it up here, but last thing you want to do is watch me look up something.
No, well, we can go to the book for that.
It's in the book, yeah.
Yeah. It just, I mean, I've been very happy with my upgrade. I came from a Series 7 up to a 10.
Oh, yeah.
And so I saw some I felt like noticeable changes with not just its capabilities, but just the general responsiveness of it. I've been really, really happy. But
as part of my testing, so I still have my original like Series 0, and I think I have a Series 4 and a Series 6. Sorry, no, a 4 and an 8. And so, as much as like I use those other things for testing different things, and it's shocking how much slower it takes just to restart restart the watch. And I look back and it's like, oh yeah, when you restarted your watch, you just set it aside for several minutes for it to do its thing. And now that's not really the case, but it's shocking just the speed of it. That I don't know, brave new world. Here we are.
Yeah, exactly. So there's not that much to say, I guess, about the hardware. So let's talk some more about the latest version of WatchOS.
Okay.
I know the sleep apnea thing. I mean, I was checking myself out, and it's like, yeah, okay, that's one problem I don't have. Nice to find one that I don't have.
Yay!
But the ECG thing is always interesting. I think just I found it to be a little, not the ECG or me, but it's a little touchy that if I put my finger on the the button too often, the crown too
Hmm.
long, it assumes that I want to do an ECG of myself and
Oh, interesting.
tries to start it. And I haven't decided if I changed a setting or something that because I didn't think it was supposed to pop up quite that quickly. But
Yeah.
and that's not even a complaint. That's just an observation. Um,
Hmm.
but other than that, it's great. The sleep tracking has been. I like a lot of people. I played with some of the sleep tracking apps out there before, and you
Hmm.
lay your phone on the bed or put this sensor under your mattress or hang this
Yeah.
from a string over your head or something. It's like no, and you try it and it's like I'm not getting anything out of this. It's worthless.
Yeah.
Now it tells me if I've gotten my self-designated number of hours of sleep, and
Hmm.
it's I'm not sure it's really well, that's not true. It probably has affected my behavior a little bit, just because of knowing that it will be tracked. Um, I
Yeah.
I'm not somebody that's big on having to close their rings every day. I don't live a quantified lifestyle, and I don't like to be dictated to by my technology. On the other
Yeah.
hand, it is giving me some incentive to behave myself in several different ways.
Yeah. Well, and this is sort of the it's not really like the untold story of the watch. I think it's to me it's still the surprise of the Apple Watch, which is not just that it has gone heavy into health and fitness and tracking and all of that, but that it's a really wide spectrum of things. And for example, this is completely anecdotal. I haven't seen anything that's real solid about this, but I have seen lots of social media posts for people who you know during their sleep tracking. So there's a new app called Vitals, and Vitals uh, tracks your sleep, your heart rate, your breathing rate, your blood oxygen. If you have an older watch that will actually do that, so the like yours and mine won't do it because of the intellectual property litigation that's going on with a company that does blood oxygen sensing. Anyway, like it's still there in the watch, but it's turned off because of legal reasons in the U.S. I should say, not internationally. Anyway, too many rabbit holes. Anecdotally, I've seen people say that they were getting like weird reports, or their breathing regularity was interrupted more often during the night, leading up to them catching a cold. So it is possible that you can sense, sorry, that the watch can sense different factors that could indicate that you're coming down with a cold. Now, maybe it's too late to do anything about it, but maybe that can be the sort of the first line of defense of, okay, I'm probably coming down with a cold. Like I may not feel it, like, you may not have like the whole head congestion and everything, but something is off. I need to, drink more water, get more rest, take more vitamin C, whatever you do to head off or shorten the effects of a cold. There's data that can help you point to that sort of behavioral change. So it doesn't have to just be, oh, I've exercised more. Although there's a thing in the Vitals app for that too. It'll give you a little track to say, the effort that you've expended this week is lower than usual, or you had a really good workout on Tuesday and Thursday, so this week's effort is higher. And those kinds of things, when taken in the aggregate, can point you to maybe better behavior, or I need to slow down and not try to pull an all-nighter because I'm going to really suffer for it because I'm catching a cold. Those sorts of things. So it's you know did anybody think that this would be a possibility when Apple decided that they were going to sell little computers on your wrist that also happen to be gold and fashionable? Probably not. But like you said, it's been this really interesting evolution getting there in small ways that can make small differences that can lead to bigger differences.
Now every time we do one of these interviews, you end up giving me homework, because now, as someone who is suffering from the back end of a cold, now I've got to go back and check my sleep schedule, my vitals, and everything, and see what it says. And if it predicted it, then okay, maybe I've just learned something that I'm going to have to watch that if I start to abuse my schedule, because that's borderline what happened. I was abusing my schedule, and it caught up with me. So. But again, I'm with you. I don't think that this was necessarily anticipated. It's become one of the kind of killer applications. The health part, not just one app, but the whole package has become a killer app, because I know a lot of people that buy it just for that, just to get the health information, and then there's some that buy it just for notifications. And some of us that try to take advantage of all of it, maybe not full advantage of every aspect of it, but there are a lot of benefits to it. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices, or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.